How's it going? My name's Heath, and I've been doing a little podcast with my dad and decided to start doing some podcasts with different musicians. I got some coming up, but I wanted to do one by myself and tell my story about music. So I guess it starts when I was a kid. I remember when I was a young kid, I picked up my dad's trombone and kind of played it around. I got videos of it. I was like 1, 2 years old tops, and I destroyed the trombone as well. It was his first trombone. Um, and I remember like roughly banging around on instruments and stuff like that until I was like 8 years old. I started playing around with my dad's little baritone tuba that he had. And he had this Dirty Dozen brass band album. I forgot which one it was, Jelly Roll something, I think. And there was this tuba line that went boom, bum, 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 ba da ba da 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 bum, ba dun dun da da. And I learned it. I remember. I don't even know if I played it for anybody, but that was like the first thing I remember ever learning. And that was when I was young. I homeschooled, and I do remember my mom teaching me some piano, just some basic things, which I didn't care about. I didn't care about reading. I kind of wanted to entertain music, just like my dad. I also listened to him my whole childhood. He had a band called Steve Hammond, the Jambalaya Jazz Band, and he would play tuba, and I would just like sit next to him, and I just heard him play and stuff. But I never realized that I memorized all his bass lines just being a kid. So, when I got a little older, I remember picking up the bass and playing jazz, and like it just kind of came to me like the bass lines my dad played on tuba. I don't know if they're exact one, but kind of he played real simple bass lines, but they were really cool. Like so I really like those simple bass lines, and a lot of times I use bass lines like with my looper pedal on guitar. So I really don't even need I didn't really need to learn super fancy jazz bass lines for what I do. So that kind of had a lot of influence on me in the early years. And then just seeing my dad like interacting with his friends, it just seemed like he had a little bit more fun. I'm going to turn this over a little bit. All right. Seems like he had a little bit more fun like than most people his age, just hanging out playing music. So that was pretty cool. And anyway, I don't really recall much more about those early days, but I fast forward to when I was in sixth grade. I started playing in the Allen Bowden Jazz Band, and I played trumpet. I was next. It was me, Blake Hudson, Waylon Snow in the trumpet section. They were my friends, and we used to play stuff like a song for Elvis, I think. I don't know, just some basic school band songs. I don't even remember too well, but I caught on pretty quick, and I got on to the point where I was even a class clown on my dad's. We just got kind of bored over there in that band. Not because it was boring, just there was a school band, there was a lot to work on, scales and things. But the next year was seventh grade, and I joined jazz band, and that was a lot of fun. So we played a lot of blues scales and stuff. And the way my dad at Allen Bowden did jazz band was a little different than the rest of the other schools. Hold on one second. I'm going to turn this lighting on. You guys, I'm just now kind of getting into this, so you got to give me some technical breaks. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's working. Anyway, whatever. So like we did jazz band. I remember we did like a lot of like when we got in, he taught us this we would play songs like man, da 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 like C jam. And, you know, we would play just. I mean, we didn't use much more than the blues scale. But looking back for the 7th grade, he got a lot of shit for that too from, you know, other band directors, and he wasn't doing it right. But dude, I can tell you, like, high school parties that I went to after that, everyone always told me how much they loved jazz band. And my dad made more fans of playing music, I bet, than most strict bands where you have to read charts all the time and stuff. We played by ear. He taught us songs by ear. And I don't know if we won any that year, but he won so many jazz competitions. And he did get a lot of crap sometimes from some of the judges for not doing more of the traditional stuff. But it was really cool. And then he would also send us back into these rooms in the back. And we'd all go back, like the trumpet sax players go back, and like the rhythm section would go back in another room. But we would go into a room, and he had these blues scales blues tracks that he had someone record in each key. And we would go back there and we would practice our blues solos in these rooms. And it was so much fun. I remember it. After that, I kind of wanted to go into sports. I don't know why. I went to a different school, and I started playing football and wrestling and stuff. I wasn't too good, and it kind of burned out over a couple of years. And so I started fishing a lot in high school, and I decided to pick up a guitar. I asked one for my 16th birthday or Christmas. I think it was Christmas. And so that's when I started playing stuff like the warden led a prisoner down the hallway to his doom, and I stood up to say goodbye like all the rest. So I played a lot of Haggard and old country songs. And, you know, during that period that I didn't really play, I was really into rap music. Like, you know, it was cool back then, and Bone Thugs and all this stuff came out. And I memorized like probably 100 rap songs, and you know, all the lyrics and stuff like that. So I was always kind of musical. And then I got into like David Allan Coe and Merle Haggard and all this stuff. And man, it just like took over, and I just started listening to all that stuff in high school. And I remember in high school, we had the Dirty David Allan Coe album, and we would just blast it over the speakers. And, you know, that's what we did back then. We were a bunch of country boys from Sapulpa, and we would just blast the Dirty David Allan Coe stuff over the speakers and just, you know, kind of raise hell and cause trouble. And I kind of like the rebel spirit of some of that outlaw country, Willie Nelson, just any of that stuff. And so I learned a bunch of songs, and I started playing at a place called Das Boot. Let me back it up a minute for my first gig, because this is a great story. Like, me and a friend, Sean Proctor, in high school, we decided to start playing songs, and we learned probably 20 songs, right? And I booked an old bar in Tulsa. I forgot what it was called. I wish I remembered what it was called. But, you know, I sent them my stuff and told them we could bring out a crowd and everything like that. And they were excited. What I didn't tell them is that we were all in high school and underage. And so I showed up drunk as hell, just thinking I was cool, like partying. I was listening to a lot of that Jason Boland and Cross Canadian Ragweed stuff at the Wormy Dog. And like, that kind of inspired me, just that kind of drunk acoustic guitar playing. And, we all showed up at this bar, and just everyone started buying beer on fake IDs, and like the bar owner caught wind of it, and I was so drunk I fell off my chair, and he kicked us all out. So that was my first gig. Kind of stupid, but you know, you live and learn. And so a few months later after that, my dad and Mike Chittum, Steve Ham and Mike Chittum, they had a duo gig at this place called Da Boat. and they played, I think it was like Tuesday and Wednesday. Or it might be like, I don't know. We played 2 times during the week and both nights the weekend. And then they were cool. They let my dad, like, go play any big gig he had. But I remember they paid us $25 a piece on the weeknight plus 2 meals and tips. And that doesn't sound like much, but I always made a lot of money in tips. $25 wasn't like, it was enough to buy some stuff back then. And I'd get 2 meals. I'd always get like the mahi and the ribeye, and they'd give me 2 full meals and I could bring it home. So that was great. And on the weekends, we got paid $50 and 2 meals. So I would make quite a bit in tips, and I played that a lot. And, I played a lot of songs like, Steve Earle, The Mountain. I would do, like, if I can remember. I was born on this mountain a long time ago, before they knocked down the timber and stripped mine to coal. And we rose in the morning before it was light to go down in that dark hole and come back up at night. I was born on this mountain. This mountain's my home, and she holds me and keeps me from worry and woe. Well, it's been a while since I played it, but I played a lot of songs like that. I did. Well, them boys from Oklahoma, they roll their joints all wrong. Well, they're too damn skinny or what? Way too long. Yeah, I ain't no holy roller, so I just use a bong. Yeah, them boys from Oklahoma roll their joints all wrong. And that was like before they legalized marijuana in Oklahoma, so it was a really cool song, and I would play stuff like that. And those old Jason Boland recordings from the Wormy Dog, I heard it and I was like, man, I can do that. Like, those chords aren't very hard. And so I'd say the first 6 months right before the boat, I probably learned 50 songs, and I'd already kind of known how to sing them and everything like that. So they kind of came easy. So I'm trying to think. After the boat, I did play a few acoustic shows other places, but I remember that was about the time I graduated high school, and I used to play all my high school parties. Like, we would have a blast. We would sing at this place. We'd ride out by Walmart called The Hill, and we would drink and do all kinds of stupid shit, get in trouble, get caught by the cops. People went to jail, but it's what we did. And I would just bring my guitar and I would play all kinds of shit, and people would just sing along. It was a blast. After I graduated high school, I started writing a few songs here and there, and I remember I got into it with my mom at the end of the summer, and she kicked me out. She said, "You got to go now." And I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? I didn't have any money, didn't have anywhere to go. But I do remember I had a friend named Chris Vanameter, and he had a place out in the country, and he said, hey man, yeah, I got an extra room. So I went out there, and I lived there for a while, and it was pretty cool, like living out in the country. I got a job at a cabinet shop working with my uncle, and then I wound up going to a place called Sullivan's Cabinets for a while. I went and worked at Oklahoma Fixtures, a few places, and I just realized, like, man, I want to play guitar. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So my dad went to a gig. He plays with the Texas Playboys, and he played with a guy named Rusty Huddleston. Rusty Huddleston was a professor at South Plains College in Levelland, Texas. And he said, hey, I got this school, it's like a commercial music school. We teach kids how to play guitar. And, my dad started talking to him about it, and he came back and told me about it. And I'm like, nah, that's fine. And then some stuff happened, and I was like, hey, I want to move back home, and I want to go to that school. And my dad said, really? I'm like, yeah. So I did. I went back home, and I played a lot of music. And at that time, when I went to college, I was playing a lot of stuff like a lot of Skinner. Got into some Guns N' Roses stuff. And I definitely knew quite a bit of Red Dirt songs, because Red Dirt music is an Oklahoma form of country, and I loved it. Cross Canadian Ragweed, Jason Bourne, I've been talking about them, Stoney LaRue, and then there were some guys out of Texas, Pat Green, Robert Earl Keen, people like that I would just listen to all the time. Anyway, it was the end of the summer, a year after I graduated high school, and I decided to go to South Plains College. So we drove out west and went to the Panhandle of Texas. We drove up the Llano Estacado, and that was like the first time I'd ever been in that area of the world. I didn't even know what the Cap Rock was. But when I went up to Levelland, I realized, man, I suck. These people are amazing. Everybody was good. There's a lot of bluegrass pickers, a lot of people playing with like the guys that I had looked up like on the weekends and loved, and they were already like, yeah, I like playing with these Red Dirt guys, but I want to be in Nashville. I'm like, man, these guys are so far along. And I remember, let's see, I wrote a couple songs like the first few nights, and there was this guy named Preston Waite. He plays fiddle for Josh Abbott. I don't know if he still plays for him or not. I'm sure he probably does. But he came in, and we kind of jammed a few times. I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, everybody's really good. And he had that kind of Texas country fiddle sound that I really liked. So it just really, that kind of sparked me up. That was while I was in my dorm for like 2 weeks before school started. And that was like my first time I'd ever really jammed with someone like that. And then, so school started, and I kind of got drunk a lot the first semester and partied. I still played a lot of music and wrote a lot of music, but I was just kind of used to fucking off. Like, I'm from a small town in Oklahoma. We like to drink. We like to have fun. And then after the first 6 months, I was like getting better, but I was like, man, I want to be really good, And I started playing jazz guitar with Emily Wheeler. She's a teacher there. Her father is Mike Christiansen, and her brother is Corey Christiansen. So they come from like this lineage of just incredible jazz guitar players. And she was hard on me. And that's what I like. Like, when I went in, and it's like, she's like, I would show her something I worked on, and she'd be like, that's okay. And that's like the perfect thing that I like. Because it's like, whenever somebody says like they're real excited and, oh, that's so good, it's like, I'm like, okay, well, it's good, then let's move on to the next. But she really kind of gave me that medicine I needed to like, feel like inadequate, and not in a bad way. She was a very good teacher, but it just made me feel inadequate in a way like I'm not there yet, but I could be if I worked hard. And I saw this guy named Craig Smith. He was a Scottish guitar player from Scotland. And I think he grew up working on like a ship or something like that. And he decided at like 25 or 26 or so to move to America and become a guitar player. And he practiced like 12 hours a day all the time. And he was constantly getting better. And I watched him. I'm like, dude, I just need to do what this guy does. So I stopped partying. I stopped doing all this stuff. I still smoked a lot of weed, but, I just didn't go to parties. I didn't drink much. I I just sat in and I started just practicing scales, like, and so on and on. I'd practice scales, I'd practice double stops, and then like I learned my triads from Mike, a teacher named Mike Caraway. And that taught me a lot because that kind of opened up the guitar neck for like some of the, that opened up some of the, for that. And I took a lesson from Joe Carr, which Joe Carr is awesome. And he was in Country Gazette, and he was a funny guy too. He would have some great jokes, and he did the Western Swing Ensemble. He was in charge of it, and we'd play in Turkey, Texas every year, which was really cool for me. But he taught me this Eldon Shamlin stuff, like Faded Love. So he taught me how to play that kind of stuff, because Emily was more hip. Like, she plays a lot of like really hip stuff. And like, there was a lot of country, Western, cowboy jazz, Western swing and stuff. And that's kind of what I played, that in Dixieland. So I did a lot of like, so I played a lot of stuff like that. But Emily was like a little bit more, I guess you could say advanced jazz, and just more like progressive jazz. She taught me more of that stuff. So like I kind of combined what she taught me with kind of like the feel of what Joe taught me, because I knew I was probably going to play more of the stuff Joe was teaching me in the long run. Because, my dad does the New Orleans jazz band. I wanted to go back home to Tulsa whenever I was done and learn how to play music so I could play in his band. And we did a lot of stuff like, let's fly down, maybe drive down to New Orleans. It's a city, girls are pretty, historic scene. And then we'd play stuff like, so like that was a little bit more kind of country, straight ahead, old school jazz. And Emily did teach me like a lot of the Freddie Green chords. I would say like the chunk stuff, like I don't really use the voicings, the Freddie Green voicings as much. Like I use more of the full chords because I play a lot of solo stuff as well. So I started playing a lot of jazz and stuff like that, a lot of country. I did a lot of, back then we were real into the chicken picking, Brent Mason, Brad Paisley, all that stuff. I learned all of that. So I learned a lot of that stuff, and I worked a lot. My first summer out of school, when I got out of school, I was to the point where I thought I was going to be able to play really good, and so I looked for a job on a road gig that summer. So there's a guy named Brant Moore in Amarillo, Texas. It was Canyon, Texas, right next to Amarillo. And he needed a guitar player for that summer. And I saw it. I called him. I'm like, hey, I'll come. So my buddy had to go down to Levelland to take a summer class, I think. I'm like, hey, will you drop me off? Because I didn't have a car. So I just got dropped off in Canyon with someone I didn't know. I really didn't even know his songs. He gave me a list. I learned what was on the list, but there were so many other songs that weren't on the list and stuff like that too. And I didn't know how they played them. We didn't even really have a practice. So I got on the bus and we took a tour up to Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I remember we sat up and it was really cool. I was really excited, but I just didn't really know the songs and I wasn't that seasoned at the time. So, I guess I had really fucked up a lot the first week. And I remember I can go on that week. I'll elaborate what happened. Like, it was pretty cool because there was a couple times, the third night, I believe we played dance, and this was during country dance stuff. And this was during the Cheyenne days that they had, the Frontier days. And there was a lot of people there. And the third night, I think we had this wet t-shirt contest. And then they asked me if I wanted to, pour the water on the wet t-shirt girls. I'm like, well, of course I do. And I remember I was just like doing that. I was like, dude, this is awesome. This is the life. And up there in Cheyenne is really cool too. Like, I did a lot of stuff. I remember there was this pizza place. These guys from Sicily moved there and started up a pizza place. And it was so good. It had that good undercarriage and all that. Man, I don't know what else I did in Cheyenne. I don't think we did a lot there. There was a cool sandwich shop I always remember. And we would play at the Outlaw Saloon. Or no, wait, this was the Cheyenne Club the first time. We would play there, but then we would go to this little sandwich shop afterwards and get a sub sandwich. And they were really good. I don't even remember what it is. Like, they might still have it if you're in Cheyenne. Like, you can tag them, if where that place is. It's kind of when you come into town. So on the way back from that first week, Brant told me that, hey man, I don't think we can use you. You're not good enough. Well, whatever. Shit happens, right? Like, and on the way down back to Amarillo, I heard him made a few phone calls, and then he said, you know what, man, I want to give you another chance. And I'm like, awesome, man. I'll do whatever it takes, and probably what really happened is he couldn't find a replacement. So he's just like, fuck, I got to use this guy. I'm sure that's what was going on. So I was like, dude, I'll do whatever it takes. So I started playing the set list like 3 times a day in my earphones. Like, just in the hotel, I'd go down by the pool. And when I go back to Lubbock, let me step back a minute. I go hang out with my buddy Adam Greenwood and Travis Morris. They had a place. And I'd go there and I told him, I'm like, hey, I'll clean your house and mow your lawn, if you let me stay here like a couple days a week. So I'd go back and I'd clean, and it was awesome for me because I got to get out there and cut grass and stuff, and it just felt good after being in bars all week. And I'd make food. I remember they had really cheap cherries there. I'd get like big things of cherries, and then I'd make these burritos and like meal prep and everything. And it was just so much fun going back there and hanging out, and it was like old times. And then there was this little shithole Greyhound bus station right next to our college in Levelland, and they'd drop me off there early in the morning. We'd always get really stoned before we did that too. And they'd go drop me off, and I'd ride the bus to Lubbock and then all the way up to Amarillo. I believe it's I-27 maybe. It's been a while. And I'd always meet them at the Greyhound station. They'd pick me up and we'd roll on. So the next week we went to Hobbs. You know what? Now that I remember, the next week, the second week, we went to Hobbs. And Adam, my buddy, he's a guitar player. He went with us for that week because, he was more solid and he could do more things at that point in time than I could. And so I'm like, hey, what if we just get Greenwood for this, this show, and we can both play, and so we did that, and it worked out really good. I don't remember much about that second week. Um, and then the third week, we went back to Adam's house, and I hung out for a while. And then I believe the third week we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and played at this place called Cowboys. Now, this might not be the exact schedule. We played Cowboys in Wyoming, and that was cool. It was a huge bar, and I remember the guy came up to me and said, "You need to play more." The guy who owned the bar. So I just started ripping it, and it was a good time. Like, we met some people there. These two girls who lived there kind of showed us around and took me and the drummer on this cool tour of Albuquerque. We went to some of the breweries and stuff like that, and that was a lot of fun. I remember that was like my first like kind of inner city experience. I'm from a small town in Tulsa. There's cool things to do in Tulsa, but we don't have just like a big strip of like breweries and stuff like that, especially back in those days. I mean, now it's growing, but that was like one of my first bigger experiences. Then we went to Laramie, Wyoming, and that was just crazy. Like, when I went up there, it was packed. People partied. I remember being afterwards up in this like third story with these guys who played hockey, and they were like, one guy was like, "Hey, I'm a wrestler. I grew up wrestling, and now I'm a hockey player." I'm like, I'm drunk. I was like, "Hey, I wrestled too," and we wrestled. He beat my ass. This dude, like, I realized this dude was like everyone started laughing when I asked him to wrestle, and I realized because he was just a straight up monster, and he kicked my ass, and I don't even know why that's significant, but I remember when the wrestling was over, I looked over and there's this guy hanging out the window, and he threw a beer bottle, and he goes, "Fuck you." And I looked down, and he threw a beer bottle like, I don't know, 30 or 40 feet away from a cop. And I was just like, "Oh no, we're going to jail." Well, the cop like starts laughing. I guess they're like childhood friends or something. And I'm just like, man, this is so crazy. And the next day I woke up and I was probably more hungover than I've ever been in my life. And I was, walking around town contemplating my life, and I saw the Laramie River. I'm like, man, I'm just going to go wade in this river. And I just waded in the river, like, and just started walking up and down this river. And it was amazing, nice and cold. And I saw some bear tracks, and it kind of scared me. There's no bears where I'm from. So I'm like, I'm getting out of here. Then that next night, that morning we woke up, and some of the guys from the bar who were hanging out with us the night before they called us, they had a keg going by like 10 a.m. And, I'm just like, dude, I can't even move. They're like, "Get up, pussy, you better go." And I walk over, and these dudes are doing keg stands. And I'm just like, I can't do it. I think we ate some food there. And that night when we went to the bar, those same guys, it's like they didn't even drink. They just came in and they were ready to go. They were up later that night. And they always told me people drink more up in Laramie. And I'm just like, I saw it firsthand. I'd never seen people just putting them away like that and just, like nothing. There's a couple other times in that summer, some things I remember. I met a buddy named Cody Ratton, who was a fiddle player. Like, he joined the band. He had been before me, but he kind of came back on like one of the fourth or fifth week or something. And I realized, I'm like, oh, dude, this is like an actual Western swing guy. And he grew up kind of like I did. We started acting like pricks. I mean, we started drinking together, playing jazz at night late in the hotel, showing up drunk, giving Brant shit. We were just letting the world know, we were there. Just, I don't know. It was a good time. I remember the last night Brant told us, not to drink, and we were kind of annoyed with him at that time. I don't know why. I don't remember why. Probably just being on the road. I mean, now that I've been a band leader, I realize like everyone gets annoyed with you, if they work for you long enough, I guess. He told us not to drink, so we drank an 18 pack full of tall boys behind the bar in his truck before we started. And he was so pissed off, and me and Ratton just had a time. And that was it. That was the last show. And that was a party summer, probably the most partying I've done on the road. And I went back home. I took a Greyhound back home and got pneumonia. And of course, probably from just being at bars, staying up late, just being hard on myself. I got pneumonia for a while. You know, that's that. So, like, I started the next section of my life in Tulsa, which was kind of crazy. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happened at that time. And I went and moved back with my parents for a while and started a little band called Tornado Alley. And oh, shoot. No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. I'm sorry. After Brant Moore, I went back to school. So I'll get to that story again. I went back to school for a couple years, and I didn't really focus as much on playing, just learning how to play and be a professional, learning how to record, writing songs, things like that. I played local shows and with some bands. I played with you know, a buddy's band. I played bass for a while, and some things like that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, when Dustin Garrett came to school, that was like huge for me because, like, you know, I'd seen Craig, like the work guy who just put in work and could just play all this stuff, but Dustin Garrett could like learn a song like on the way to school in the morning and play it better than the guy on the record. And I was blown away by his talent. And there's another couple guys that really like stood out. You know, Mark Morgan and Brian Pacheco were a couple of buddies of mine. I didn't really play their style. They were more like rock shutters, but they were so good. They were guys that reminded me like I have work to do, you know. And Will Boring, I played in Thursday Night Live with him, which I made the next semester after being on the road with Brant, and that was awesome. Kylie Ray Harris was in there. You know, she's not here anymore. She passed away in a car crash a few years back, but she had wound up singing on one of my songs, and she had some success. She was amazing at singing, I thought. You know, I'm trying to go through my category list. Kerry Banks was our leader, and he was really good. He was hard on me too, man. He was like, he'd never really like compliment me that much or anything like that. And it's kind of what I needed. I took vocal lessons from him. That was a big deal. You know, I wound up being in the jazz ensemble with Emily's husband, Brent. He was like really good. Like, honestly, Brent is like a monster when it comes to playing lines. Like, you know, everyone says Emily's the best, you know, out of them. And, you know, there's when she plays chords, it's just like, you know, it's like at the level of like the best jazz guitar chords you've ever heard. But when it comes to ripping lines, like Brent, man, he is a monster. Like, this guy he's got that fiery energy, right? And we didn't really get along too well in his ensemble, but like, dude, he was like just seeing how he could just pick things up and play, and he was like really stubborn, like, you know, about what to do and stuff. That helped me out a lot. It kind of made me see how like someone with like next level skill and knowledge in a band, like, you just need to look up and respect them. You don't really need to like give them any shit, you know, when you're playing. It's like, you're there. These are things I've learned later in my life. It's like, you're there to learn. And, you know, if someone makes you feel a certain way and you feel inadequate or something, like if you're trying to get to be a monster, that's good. You want to be broken. You want someone to break you so that you can really, really like have something to prove. And that's kind of how you get that next level in music, where like you can go play jazz gigs and like, you know, you're cocky and arrogant and people want to listen to you play solos. So, and Brent taught me a lot doing that. And then he like was super good on bass. He used to let me come up to Larry's Smokehouse, and I'd set in with him up there a lot too. That was big time. I got to play on stage with Alan Mundy while he played jazz guitar, and he's a freaking monster too. He's a world-class banjo player, but he was just so happened to be like a monster jazz guitar player too. So that was cool. Emily and Brent, they had these Buscarinos 7-string guitars, and man, they just sounded so good. Jim Hall, that's who I was thinking. Emily Wheeler is like Jim Hall, like when it comes to chords. Like, I don't know. I'm sure one's better than the other, but like it's, to me, I can't really tell. She's just so good at chords and like things like that. Like it's like Jim Hall level. And so I've never gotten to play chords the way she did and never quite learned all the chords and stuff that she wanted me to, which, I kind of regret that, but it is what it is. I got a lot out of it. Sonny Borba was a guitar teacher. He came in a little later, and dude, he was badass. He taught me the Mother solo. Like, I don't even know if I can still play it. It's like, so like he taught me that, and then taught me this Joe Satriani piece, and that kind of loosened my fingers up a little bit, like feeling the tone, I wouldn't say Sonny was the most influential on me because like our genres were so different, but the way he looked at guitar was so different than the rest of the teachers. Like, I couldn't be who I was today without that lesson. I mean, it's just like there's things that I've played that I would have never played if it weren't for that lesson with Sonny. Another guy is Steve Williams. I would say Steve Williams is like one of the most solid professional guitar players you'll ever meet, right? Like, when it comes to skill, it's like, I'm sure maybe somebody might in the building might have been faster or something like that. I don't know. Like he didn't really focus on any of that. It was just like clean. I would say like he's like a Lloyd Maines type guy. Just everything clean, sounds like it's perfect for the record, staying out of the way of everything. He was just a true pro. And he played here in Austin professionally, I think, for 10 years for a blues singer. I believe he played for Joe Ely. I would have to ask him about that. Another guy I said about Mike Caraway, he also taught me how to do this, which I never got real advanced, but I use a lot of this stuff like when I'm playing like Sweet Georgia Brown. He taught me that Travis picking. So like this is the Sweet Georgia Brown chords. And so some days like I'll just do like 1, 2. So like stuff like that. And there's definitely levels above what I can do with Travis picking, but it's definitely led to like an interesting little thing that I throw in on some jazz songs. I do a lot of solo jazz stuff, so I'll play 3 or 4 or 5 times through the solos. So it's like, I need some, I might play like the first time through like a Sweet Georgia Brown. I might be like, so it's just some lines. My fingers aren't that warmed up, by the way, like that. But also, you can throw in that Travis picking for like a time through the solo. People really like it. Like Emily taught me a lot of this Wes Montgomery stuff, so I use that a lot. So I'll do some of that stuff. I'm not like a monster octave player or anything. It's just some weaponry that Emily gave me. She made me learn this Jack Peterson solo, and that was pretty cool. It kind of taught my fingers how to move. I learned the Charlie Christian solo from, man, what's that song? I was like, da 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 da. Boop-a-da-doo-da. I don't know. It's an album he did with Benny Goodman. And man, if there's other solos, I'm not really sure what other solos I learned. Just Emily taught me a lot. She's definitely like the biggest influence guitar teacher I've ever had. But like Joe Carr, I mean, Emily's just the biggest influence over Joe and stuff like that too, because she, like, I know the guitar neck, like the fundamentals of what I do is what she taught me. So kind of the other lessons that I had, I didn't learn as much fundamentals, just stylistic stuff. Trying to think if there's any. I don't think I had any other teachers besides that. Yeah, probably not. Anyway, Ed Marsh taught theory, sight singing, ear training, and stuff, and he was a good guy. Trying to think. So Ed taught me like a lot about theory and things like that, and then I got a job with him one summer. The second summer, I was there doing some math classes in summer school, and honestly, a lot of the stuff I learned from Ed, like that really carried through me, were the talks we had about theory and stuff. Like while we were digging holes, I think we did some sewer system work and some things like that. But Ed was always a good guy, man. And it's like in music school, I grew up a country boy, and it's like Ed was someone I found who liked to work hard, and I like to work hard. It's like, even if I was a multi-million-dollar musician, I'd want to come home and work in the garden. So Ed kind of helped me out, just, gave me a job and all that. The last year, I had finally got a car and a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone or a car through college. And that was pretty cool. I started to like drive around and do some gigs more that year, solo gigs. I might have been the first act at Triple J. I'm not sure, but I know as soon as they opened downtown, I went there and played. I played the Blue Light because me and some boys got a band together called $2 Pistol that year, and we were going to go. We wanted to book a tour, which we did, and I'll tell you about that later. But we played at the Blue Light, County Line, Bash Rip Rock, stuff like that. And then I played with the Saloon Gypsies. We played a few shows. We played down in Midland, which was pretty fun, at this place called the Escape Lounge. And it was just like, a hotel bar, and we'd go there and, we'd party after the show and stuff. And it was a blast. I don't know what it was about that place. It was just kind of like one of those gigs. It's like, you knew you were going to get paid. You knew it was going to be laid back. And you knew there was like your hotel room was right there. It was just a great gig. I like playing there. We played in Amarillo, and one of my favorite stories in Amarillo, like there's this place called The Jungle. It's a strip club, and me and Travis Lyles and Adam Greenwood, we went to this strip club in the middle of the day, and I don't know who talked him into it. Adam didn't even want to go. He was going to stay in the car. I don't even know if he got out of the car, but if he did, it's because we like begged him to. But we went in there, and there was like 15 strippers there working and no customers. So we were like a band, and we didn't have much money, but they were just excited to have us there. So like we would just throw dollars. We had like $20 a piece, I think, and it like lasted for 4 hours. It was like the greatest strip club experience I've ever had in my life. And I remember coming out, it was like, dude, it's almost showtime. Like we stayed there forever, and we came out, and we just felt like we were like titty bar drunk, It was like a fun time. And I don't even remember the gig we played that night, but I remember on that gig, we used to go to Hooters in the morning. Everybody liked to get Bloody Marys, things like that. So that year was interesting. And towards the end of that year, I met a lady through Brant Moore. Brant Moore, it's like, yeah, I know we kind of pissed him off and stuff at the end, but we were still cool and stuff after a while. And he wanted to stop playing, so he gave me his booking agent's contact, Diana Milan, and she sent us on the road. We did a band called $2 Pistol, and it it was great. We went all over. We went from North Dakota. It was me, Brian Pacheco, um, Brandon. I'm sorry, I forgot his last name. Thomas Estes played drums. So I guess it was just four of us. No, Brian Pacheco played drums and Thomas Estes played guitar with me and sang harmony. So we went to like North Dakota the first week, which was a blast. I think the second week we went to like Laramie, Wyoming. We went to all those places, and that was a lot of fun. Half the bars didn't even really like us that much. Half of them did. It wasn't a huge success, but it was kind of the first thing I put myself out there and kind of fell on my face a little bit. And it toughened my skin up. It's like, okay, like not everything is just like playing to your hometown boys. Like sometimes like you got to fit the mold, That summer we did a lot of cool stuff. We did like a workout together every day as a band. We did like ran sprints and had jump ropes, and that was pretty cool. I got to do a lot of running up in Minot, North Dakota, and it's beautiful up there in the summer. A lot of magnolias and like just beautiful flowers, and like I think there was like a Teddy Roosevelt Park up there. Man, that everything kind of runs together when I think about that summer. There was a couple times I remember one time we broke down at a flat tire in the middle of nowhere, and there just so happened to be a tire shop like 5 miles down the road or 3 miles. And I remember like driving down there, and we got it taken care of somehow. It was a miracle. It was in the middle of New Mexico, like in the summer. That was pretty crazy. Farmington, New Mexico was pretty fun. There was a lot of cool running trails up there. And I just don't have any like super crazy stories about that. I think I was like in charge of stuff, so I don't have as many stories. When you're like the guy in charge, it's like you stop like fucking off and you get serious. So I guess that's kind of where I went. Then at the end of that summer, I tried to regroup the band. We went up to Minot, and I'd recruited this band and worked hard, and we went up there, and I don't know, the band kind of turned against me. And so, they kind of said, hey, this guy's going to be the singer, and this guy's going to be the lead player. And they all kind of turned against me. And, that was kind of a weird time. I had to ride back in that van, and it was pretty hostile on the way back. I don't know what I did to piss everybody off, but I pissed them off. And so as soon as I got back, I kind of told them like, hey, I'm out, and they were a little mad because I had the bookings, but I'm like, dude, I'm done. And so I kind of parted ways with that. And then I decided that was at the end of, I'm getting this stuff mixed up. After that, I went and joined a band called Hammer Down, and we had a lot of fun playing in Tulsa, Stillwater, just all these places. And me and Miles, we played Dirty David and Ellen Co. stuff. We played everything. Like, we went to like all these small dive bars, and we would play Stillwater Game Day at Georgia Stables. And man, that was fun because it was just a small bar, and it was just so packed during game day, and they loved everything we did. And so this story has happened before all that kind of the band turned against me thing. But Georgia Stables, like there was a guy, Wild Bill was the manager. I think later on he wound up like leaving or getting fired or something happened. I don't remember, but he was cool. We called him Handlebars because he was a rodeo clown. He had this big old mustache, and he'd throw lemons and shit at us while we were playing, and he'd flip us off, and we'd make this chant in the bar, fuck Wild Bill. And everyone would start chanting it. And then he would just get this big old smile on his face. And man, we played 4 or 5 of those shows, and it was just, man, it was so fun. Stillwater, Oklahoma is like one of the coolest places in the world I've been to. But after that, after the hammer down, things kind of settled down, and then that's when the band, we went up to North Dakota. I tried to regroup the $2 pistol, and that didn't work. So I was like, what if I just do a power trio? Because I was doing a lot of stuff. I wanted to play some of that stuff, so I'm like, let's make a power trio. So I went through some musicians trying to get it started. I had some, I jammed a little bit up at my church, and then I started going to this jam at Har Weldon, I believe. It's a mansion in Tulsa. Ted Moses hosted it. I don't believe Ted is still around anymore, but he was like super influential in all the jazz players, right? Like he was kind of one of those super jazz nerds who knew more than most people, and people would kind of go over to his house and hang out just to learn things. And I met Matt Maxwell, and he was playing bass, and I was like, dude, this dude's got a good attitude, and he's pretty good at bass. Like I just think he needs to get his some time in front of an audience. And I'm like, this guy's badass. And Matt and I played for 3 years together, probably the closest musician to me I've ever had as far as being on the road. Man, we did everything. I made this deal with him, like, hey, you can't play with anybody else on the weekend, and I'll keep you busy. And I did that because it's just tough, like trying to keep a group together and then going through all these calls and booking a show. And then it's like, oh, I'm playing with this guy, playing with this guy. I'm like, no, I want to do this. So we did it, man. We went everywhere. And me and Matt, honestly, I got to have a little podcast with him because, he wound up going to Life Church and playing all these churches. And, when we first started playing, I could see it's like, the first like couple months, it's like, hey man, let's work on some blues. Let's do this. And then it'd get good. By the first year, I mean, it's just, we were like tight and we knew each other, like playing and everything like that. And Matt had became like, a really good player at that time, really solid. And we just kept playing. And he started joining the Life Church, and, he kind of, he just had some better opportunities come along, and he wound up, he still does play on the road with Luke Combs, and he's became just like one of the, hanging out with Victor Wooten, just a monster bass player, and like a Nashville legend, all this stuff, Tulsa legend. And I will say, I do know that, like, I used to have people come up, some of these old jazz guys come up and tell me, like, Maxwell needs to improve. Maxwell this, Maxwell that. I'm like, dude, Maxwell's a badass. And then nowadays, I see these same guys like commenting on his posts, like how awesome he is. And I'm like, dude, I used to tell you that back when you didn't think that. I said, this guy, I always knew that Maxwell was like gonna be something, because like it's not just about bass playing, right? Like he told me, he's like, dude, if it's about bass playing, like you could like find 3 guys playing bass on the street of Nashville on my walk to my car that could play the bass physically better than me. But the thing about Maxwell is he's a monster player, but he gets behind the people that he plays. He loses his identity for the greater good. And it's like, those are the types of people you want on the band. So it's like, with that attitude, it was like, he was just destined to be something, I mean, there was just no way he wasn't gonna do anything. So, that was like my guy. I do miss playing with Maxwell a little bit. We did a record not too long ago I need to put out. It's a reggae rock album, and I'm like really proud of it. I just haven't really had the time to put it out yet, but I really want to. And Yeah, those days were a lot of fun. I have so many stories about me and Maxwell, but those are going to be saved for another time. And I need to go over. I need to go over what stories we actually need to tell and just keep between ourselves too. I do remember like sometimes when we'd be going down the back roads traveling in Oklahoma, we had a ritual, and every time we smelled a skunk, I'd slam on the brakes, and me and him would look at each other. We go, and it was just, I don't know what it was. It was a stupid thing. And we did just some things like that, but I'm going to have save that for another time. But after Maxwell left, I started playing around. I met a guy named Antoine, and he played bass for me for a little while and drums. And, me and him have made some stuff together, and he helped me get my studio together. Man, I played, who else played with my David Teagarden played in my band. He's not with us anymore. Such a nice guy. I love the Teagardens. They're probably like my favorite people ever, who else? Man, there's a couple other guys who played with us that was just awesome. Like I got to keep going back. Shane Bailey, he played with us. Me and Maxwell and Shane was a great drummer, and he passed away not too long ago after he left my band. And it just, man, it's crazy. A lot of these guys just, it happens, man. And he was the talent. Shane was the talent. Shane was the guy who was going to be playing with Wynton Marsalis or something like that kind of talent, he was just head and shoulders above everybody else at his age. Me and Maxwell were all obviously talented in our own ways, but like Shane had that early, just heavy jazz experience in his life, and he just knew stuff, Tony Oe was his teacher. He had set us up. And so at that time, when after the Maxwell years and everything for me started settling down, I started playing with my dad's jazz band. And, we played a lot of New Orleans stuff. And, those are the guys I grew up idling. And, I idolizing all these guys. I mean, they were just, I couldn't believe I was playing with them, and, I had to get in there and prove my worth. A lot of things happen. Like people would adjust my guitar amp and tell me that I needed to do it like this and that. And, looking back, I probably should have took up for myself a little bit more and been a little bit more confident because, I wound up playing this acoustic guitar in that band, and I just, I didn't like the tone. I didn't like it, but that's what they wanted me to play. So that's what I did, and it was great. I got to play all these great jazz gigs with them. I mean, I got so many stories, all these little times. I'm going to probably bring out more stories with other people, but that was a great time. And I started playing Cajun Ed's every day at lunch. I'm like, dude, I want to do my own jazz. And I don't really know how to play everything. So I asked Cajun Ed if we could play at lunch, and Cajun Ed just passed away. He's one of my favorite people. A-Bears, Cajun Eds. And, rest in peace, Cajun Ed. Like, I still think of you, man. You have the best Louisiana, New Orleans food. And I'll tell you, if you want the best New Orleans food, drive through Louisiana and then go up to Tulsa, Oklahoma to Cajun Ed's restaurant. And you tell me if there's any difference. I would say the stuff in Tulsa is better than most of the stuff I've had in Louisiana, believe it or not. He's from Baton Rouge. So it's kind of, it's a little bit, it's kind of cheating, right? It's not like a local Tulsan making, someone born and raised in Tulsa making Cajun food. He knew the real deal. He had his grandma's recipes, and oh my God, his food was so good. Like crawfish etouffee, stuffed and deboned chicken, cornbread stuffing, turducken, dirty rice, like anything you wanted. He cooked it better than anybody. And I would play every day at lunch, and I had a looper pedal. So I would play things like, I don't know, well, I am weak weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all harm. Well, I'll be satisfied as long, just as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. So I'd play stuff like that, like old New Orleans things, and at lunch, and it would loop, and then I would play stuff over it, So I'd play stuff like that. And man, it was a huge thing for me because while I just played for tips and probably financially, I could have looked for something better that would have benefited me more. That's what turned me into a jazz player. That's why I can play a full show of jazz right now by myself. That's why I could hire a trio right now and be the only lead player and sing and everything. It might not be the most monster shit you ever heard, but that's why I can do that. It just made me solid. It gave me a foundation. And around that time, I had bought a studio in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. So the studio I started when I was in West Tulsa. This was a crazy time in my life because, I'd always smoked some weed. And then I started, whenever that K2 stuff first came out, I started smoking it. And it just, I did it because we'd been on the road and I'm like, man, there's no weed, but this stuff's pretty good. And man, for like a few months, I was so hooked on that. I felt like I was going to die. Like I was and I started like missing shows and stuff. And I was like, man, I got to get my shit together. And I just bought a house over on Goody Coons in Sapulpa, and I wasn't doing anything with it. So I called my parents. I'm like, hey, I need to come move home for a minute, and then I'm going to move in my house. And I went fishing for a few days, and I detoxed, and I quit. I just fucking quit. And it just snuck up on me. I'm like, man, this stuff is the worst. It's like worse than heroin or anything. Maybe not. I don't know. It was bad. It got a hold of me. So like, that's my like drug story about like whenever I kind of, went down a bad path. That's probably my one story. Once I moved back to Sapulpa, I had started a studio with Roger Johnson down at the Uneducated Building downtown Sapulpa. And that was awesome. I had my own studio, a place to hang out. After it closed down, I had friends there and we'd hang out in my studio and record stuff. And I had met a guy named Paul Rossler, and he had a bunch of originals, and I had started getting into the Brad Noel and Sublime at that time because I just hadn't had the luck with country music. And that's what I wrote. I wrote country music, the blues stuff and the rock stuff that I did with the trio. I had a lot of luck with that, but it was still just covers. And so I started listening to Brad Noel, and I started listening to stuff, and I'm like, man, I get a lot better reaction when I sing this stuff than I sing country. So I would, I started playing. When you grab a hold of me, tell me I will never be set free. I'm a parasite, creeping, crawling, stepping into the light. So I did that, and I asked Paul, I'm like, hey, would it be cool if we did this album in that style? And he's like, sure, man, I really don't care. He's like, I just want to get these songs out. And he's like, I like the style. It sounds cool. I mean, he cared. It just kind of, he wanted to get his songs out. And man, that album, we did Red Dirt Reggae. You guys can look it up. It has all my hero horn players from my childhood on it. Paul, yeah, I mixed it. It probably doesn't have the best mix because that was my first album. But man, that ignited a fire in me. And me and Paul worked together for a long time. He was a great guy. Actually, I'd like to get back in touch with him. I lost my old phone and I don't have his number anymore. So, man, he was a good guy, and just, he supported me, and I worked really hard for him. I spent a lot of time on his stuff because he gave me free range. And I also met someone named Jim Webb, and he's a doctor from Oklahoma. He's originally from Kellyville. and he is a big time like muscular skeleton doctor, and I mean, just he's made the world a better place type of guy. And he started coming in and recording and stuff like that. And so I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you want Dale Morris Jr., which is my favorite fiddle player on this? And I went down to his house, and me and him jammed, and I recorded fiddle for some of his tracks. And man, I played with him, and we jammed for a while. And he's the greatest, man. I mean, he's like Dustin Garrett. I was telling you guys earlier about Dustin Garrett. Dale Morris Jr. is like the fiddle version of him. He just breathes music. Like I can imagine, like he could go on a 1 month trip and not bring his fiddle, and come back and do a few, finger workouts and just tear it up. I'm sure it's probably not that easy, Dale, if you're listening, but you make it look that easy. Dale Morris Jr. makes playing fiddle look like, hey, I can do that. And then it's like, no, you can't. Not like that. Nobody can. Maybe Mark O'Connor, like maybe like that level, like could give Dale a run for his money. But I'm telling you, like he's like one of the greatest people I've ever met. And same with Dustin Garrett. It's just like, oh, I could play that. I could play that. It's like, man, you can play it, but can you just breathe this stuff out like without even trying, And Dale was that guy. I also did some stuff with a guy named Ted Soliday, which he's just a local guy in Sapulpa, just a monster rocket player, just insane. And we did all this stuff too, like inspired kind of by like 9 Inch Nails and things like that. I'd never done that before, so that gave me like some practice doing different genres and things that I wasn't into. So I got to listen to it, and I had like a unique perspective on the genre because I didn't really care how traditional it sounded. I just wanted to make it sound kind of like that. We made some really good stuff. I did a little album there with Ricky Morton. I mean, it's just something I have on YouTube. Ricky Morton, the fiddle player. He's a monster. We had a lot of fun. My dad would stop by all the time, and we'd hang out. Me, him, and Steve Davis from Sapulpa, Oklahoma did a Christmas song, which was really cool. Man, I'm trying to think any more about those days. I'll probably get back into those a different time. But that just gave me like time to play to a metronome. That gave me time to do things like that. Danny McBride, I played some with him. He's a monster player. He showed me some stuff. We actually wound up getting into it over like a recording studio thing, and I don't think we've really been that close since. But sometimes things happen, man. It's kind of how stuff is. But it still doesn't take away the fact Danny McBride is a sick motherfucker when it comes to playing country and stuff like the blues. Just ridiculous. Like if it sounds like he's juicing an orange when he's playing, it's just so juicy. And he's got that kind of Dustin Garrett, Dale Morris Jr. type thing. Although like maybe not quite that, but Danny's got that kind of, he's a freak. Like he's a little bit more of a freak than your average great player. So about that time, I just kind of realized like I wasn't going anywhere in Sapulpa. There just wasn't like very far for me to go, especially with my original music. So I decided to move to Austin. Travis Morris, the guy I had lived with in Levelland on the weekends, he asked me if I wanted a room with him in Austin, and I'm like, sure. And so I sold everything I had, all my stuff, saved up money. I went down to Austin, and I started playing at this little food truck. I asked him if I could play, and I'd play for tips every day. I didn't have a job, so I just played there, and I was like, whoa, I could just set up here and make like $50, $60 in tips. And that was decent for, 2014, just moving to Austin. I can do that a couple times a day. And then there's this place called Taqueria Arundus, and a guy named Daniel Camarena, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I walked in and his uncle was working. I asked him if I could play, and he said, yeah. And so I wound up playing there for like months and months, and I still play there sometimes. That was a huge thing for me. They were really nice to me, and when I first showed up, and it was just an easy place for me to walk in, and I'd probably make, $30 to $50 at lunch and $30 to $50 at dinner. And I did all that for about 6 months, and that's how I paid the bills. After that, I kind of took a little break from really pursuing music. Well, I never really took a break. I just had to get a job. I never really had to get a job and support myself in a way I had to in Austin. My family has roots in Tulsa. There's always things that I could do. Here, it's like I'm on my own. So I got a job riding my bicycle, delivering sandwiches for Jimmy John's. And that lasted probably like a couple months until I met a pedicabber one night. He was riding a pedal taxi, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm at like $500." I'm like, "Man, screw this job." So I went and started pedicabbing, and that was a really cool time in my life because I could just work a couple times a week and work on music. And there was a country band that I was in, and a guy named Danny Kopak was in it. And I asked him if he wanted to go eat after a couple of gigs, and I knew we were going to be cool. Well, this band we were in, it just wasn't going anywhere. It just didn't have we just didn't really, we did a lot of practices, and just the songs, we just didn't have the songs together. And so me and Danny started talking about, what if we jam or something like that. John Jones was his friend, played bass, and he called me up. He's like, "Hey, you want to jam?" And we went and jammed, and it was just on. Like, Aquifer was started. I had all these originals, like some stupid heartbreaks and stuff that don't even matter in my life. I wrote about. I had all these originals, all this reggae stuff, and we just started playing, man. It was the three of us. We started playing at the pedicab shop. That was like our first gig. And then we just started playing in Bryan, Texas. My friend Travis Lyles introduced us to Bill Allen. Bill Allen kept us busy. We played downtown Rainy Street. We were just playing a lot. And there was a lot of fun times. Like, we got a lot of people. They really liked us. And then Corona happened. That was like really tough because we had a lot of shit. We just got things together. And Danny is another guy kind of like Maxwell. Danny's just like, me and him are going to play. We've played forever. We've done a lot of stuff together. And, it's just, we still do play together. But it was just a fun time. We were young, and we played Flamingo Cantina a lot, all kinds of places. And I got to play my originals. We recorded an album over at Mike Blanchard's place, and he's going to be, I assume he's going to be on Sunday. We're supposed to have a little podcast too, so maybe that would be a cool thing, to tune in. He talk about Aquifer and stuff like that. But anyway, so once that happened, I moved in with my girlfriend at the time, Carolyn Subject, and me and Danny and John started playing a little bit after the pandemic, once things started to open up a bit, and we had some really cool shows, and John wound up moving away. So we had to kind of revamp the band, and, it was always like my boys club, and I always wanted to be that way. But Carolyn showed up one day, and she just started singing all the harmonies to all these songs. And, I told Danny, I'm like, "Look, man, I really don't want to get my girlfriend involved in our band, but I'm like, she knows all the songs. This is great." And he agreed. And, she started singing harmony, and Mike started playing timbales, and Danny was playing drums, and we had a few different bass players. And that was a really cool thing. We haven't done a ton since then, but we've played some really cool shows, and our band has changed the sound a little bit. And I got to show Carolyn some really cool places to play, and there was a night I had, I believe, strep throat, or I was super sick in Bryan, and I just couldn't sing anymore. So she got to sing lead. That was pretty cool. Yeah, Carolyn's another person like I've worked with a lot, and I still talk to her a lot. We still do business stuff together, but you know that was a big thing. Like she's definitely someone that I will always like remember all the gigs we played. They really mean a lot. We would go out to the Bat Bridge, Congress Bridge, or like behind my house in Busk sometimes. And I remember we went to Comfort, Texas, and she was good, and I told her, hey, you could play my breaks. And she got up and just froze. And I remember like that was a huge moment. I knew that would be a moment, but like she just bombed that day. Like it was like, holy crap. And it was nerves, 100% nerves, because she's really good. But after that, I noticed she just started playing more and more, and me and her kind of played together a lot and wrote some songs. She's a great songwriter too. Hopefully she puts some stuff out someday because she's got a lot of good music. She wrote a couple songs for Aquifer too, which were really good. Anyway, I'm gonna play like a couple of original song from Aquifer. Well, this old town is driving me crazy. One thing I miss about the good old days is being lazy. Riding around, it's got its ups and downs. But one thing that I know is I'll be safe and sound. I'm thinking about the good old days. I'm thinking about the good old days. I'm thinking about my ways. Well, this old town, man, it's been driving me crazy. One thing I can tell you now, man, I ain't lazy. Riding this town, it's got its ups and its downs. But one thing that I know is I still go downtown. But I'm thinking about the good old days. I'm thinking about the good old days. I'm thinking about my ways. That's a good song I just wrote. Let's see. I don't really know what else to play. I guess I'm going to wrap it up. I've been on here for about an hour and a half. Now I'm kind of revamping my music and doing everything. Aquifer's still together. I'm doing a lot of stuff by myself now, and I want to dedicate, I'm dedicating like the next 10 years of my life. I really want to go really hard in playing music. I still love music. I'm going to have to, when it comes to like Scotty's Bar and these places like that and some of the stories, I kind of want to save this for Maxwell because, this is, I'd love to get him on and save that for him. Hopefully he can do it. So anyway, thanks guys for listening to my story. I'm thinking of all the things I missed. I'm just going to have to save it for another day. Anyway, peace out guys. Thanks.